Hello and welcome to Business 360. I am Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Sensex Nifty gained for the sixth straight week, the longest winning streak in 2024, but bank stocks see profit booking and Nifty Bank turns negative for the week. IT stocks rally after TCS reports better than expected first quarter earnings. TCS top brass says FY25 will be better than FY24, even as it remains guarded on the outlook.
It's principle based, it is formula based. Yes. There is a framework for it. At the end of the year, we just calculate following the guidelines and the principles laid down the ECF framework.
RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das says the 2 lakh crore rupee dividend payout to the government is as per law and not at his discretion. Adds that the amount is not a precedent and it will not burden his successors. That's an exclusive. City gas distribution companies asked the government for a tax cut. Sources say industry wants parity with LPG and electric vehicles and says higher tax rates are making the industry uncompetitive. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal gets interim bail from the Supreme Court in the liquor policy case filed by the Enforcement Directorate, but he will remain in jail due to a CBI case. A larger bench of the Apex Court will decide on the necessity of the arrest under the anti-money laundering law. West Bengal becomes the 5th state to move the Supreme Court against the governor for allegedly stalling legislations. State claims that 8 bills are awaiting ratification. Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Kerala and Punjab have filed similar applications before the Apex Court. Adani-run Vizhinjam port begins operations. This is the largest transshipment port in Kerala. Karan Adani tells CNBC-TV18 that the group is interested in acquiring the state-run container corporation if the valuation is right.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
US President Joe Biden remains defiant about staying in the presidential race despite verbal gaffes. Biden mistakenly calls Ukraine's Zelensky Putin and refers to Vice President Kamala Harris as Trump. More than 60 people are missing after a landslide in Nepal sweeps 2 buses into a river. At least 7 Indians are among those missing. Global business leaders, Hollywood superstars congregate in Mumbai for Anant Ambani and Radhika Merchant's wedding. The couple will tie the knot this evening. Well, let's start with a quick look at the day's market action. Sensex and Nifty gained nearly 1% each to end in the green for the 6th straight week. This is the longest weekly winning streak in 2024 so far. IT stocks were largely responsible for the gains on the back of the index. Bank stocks saw profit booking and the Nifty Bank index ended in the red for the week. And well, speaking of IT stocks, the TCS management does not see a visible pickup in discretionary demand, but insists that there is no deterioration either. The IT giant's top brass spoke to CNBC-TV18 a day after delivering better than expected Q1 earnings. The TCS stock recorded its best single gains since October of 2020. TCS CEO K. Krithivasan said that he expected FY25 to be better than the last fiscal and that the company is hoping to get back the aspirational margin band of 26 to 28%.
FY25 is still whole will be better than FY24,
right.
And we are quite comfortable with that. And see, what we have not been able to see much of a change in customer behavior in this quarter compared to the last quarter. They are looking at cost optimization, opportunity to do more conserve cash, and if there is a continuing trend towards looking at the ROI, so all those none of those factors are changed. Pick up in work in deals like BSNL is definitely one factor. The second is not necessarily the discretionary spend, but more cost optimization spend also. That's as an increase. So both together is what is delivering this.
Well, Rema Tendulkar is here joining us now with a bull and bear case on what to expect from the IT earnings.
So let's start with the bull argument. Are we at the beginning of an earnings upcycle or an upcycle for the IT stocks? Is the worst over? Some reasons. One, very strong numbers from TCS, a beat on revenues, a beat on margins, and even BFSI, which was under pressure for them, has clocked in a positive growth. It's a modest growth, but after 5 quarters of a contraction sequentially, this time BFSI has thrown in a little bit of a growth. The second reason is that the IT stocks have gone through some time correction. They've not given you any return over the last 3 years. And the third reason is that IT stocks are very sensitive to the global interest rate cycle. So when interest rates rise in the US, you saw IT stocks underperform. And now there is hope that perhaps in September or November, interest rates in the US will come down. And typically, IT stocks globally and in India react to that positively when the interest rate cutting cycle begins. So that's the bullish argument, which makes a case for stocks to do well from here on. But on the bear side, right, analysts are quick to point out that yes, Q1 was fine for TCS, good set of numbers, but the management is still very cautious. They're not confident to call out any recovery or turn in demand. We quizzed them many times on the discretionary demand, but they're saying it's not deteriorated, but it's not come back. There is no visibility. So the management is still cautious, and they're not talking about demand sustaining from these levels. Also, history tells us that even if stocks do well, right, over the last 1 month, 3 months, but if it's not backed by earnings, you quickly see the stocks being sold into. And these are stocks which have done very well in the last, 45 days. In the last 45 days, names like Wipro are up 25-30%. HCL Tech too has seen a 17% return. And the final argument which the bears are making is the valuation. The Nifty IT is trading at a 30% premium to the Nifty, higher than the historical averages of 20%. And it's not that the Nifty IT EPS growth, at least for the large caps, is going to be so much more. The Nifty IT is likely to see an EPS growth of 10% over the next 2 years, which is in line with the Nifty EPS growth. So therefore, there is no, justifiable reason why the Nifty IT should trade at a premium to the Nifty.
Right, Rema, thanks a lot for that. Now, the RBI Governor, Shaktikanta Das, has said that the 2.11 lakh crore rupee dividend payment to the government is as per the framework recommended by the Bimal Jalan Committee. The governor asserted that the payout was not at his discretion. In an exclusive conversation with Lata Venkatesh, the governor also dismissed notions that it will create difficulties for future governors. Take a look.
Now, so far as the dividend payment is concerned, we cannot link it to it cannot be linked to our expectation from the budget. It is provided in the RBI Act that the surplus has to be transferred to the government.
Yes.
And the surplus has to be transferred after making all the provisions required. And the surplus has to be transferred now as per the recommendations of the Bimal Jalan Committee. We have an economic capital framework.
Yes.
It is principle based, it is formula based.
Yes.
There is a framework for it. At the end of the year, we just calculate.
I know you're making it sound formulaic, but you know, as a central banker, if inflation were high, you would not print so much money and give it to the government. Because inflation is behaving itself, it has been falling from the highs, you could give, you apply the formula. If inflation was high, you would not have applied the formula. What I'm saying is, when you give 2.1 trillion, you make life difficult for governors coming after you.
No, I disagree.
It becomes a precedent.
I disagree with you when you say if inflation were, lower.
Yeah, if it were higher, you cannot give such a big.
You are saying that we would not apply the formula. The question doesn't arise. You look at this. The Bimal Jalan Committee recommendations came in 2019, in the middle of 2019 calendar year.
Yes.
We applied it for calculation of the surplus transfer for 18-19. For 18-19, the money which was paid in next financial year was 1,76,000 crores. So that was the all-time high at that point of time. Then subsequently, if you look back at the last 5 years, after that there was one occasion, I don't remember, when it was 30,000 crores.
Yes.
It was 30,000, 30.
Yes, I remember that.
So how did that happen? 176 did not create expectations. So after that we gave 30,000 crore.
Yes.
And if I again remember correctly, it went up to something like about 99,000 or 1 lakh crore.
1 lakh crore. Correct.
But then again it came down to about 57, 56, around that. So therefore, there have been, ups and downs in the dividend payment. So it is entirely formula driven. Whatever is the number that comes out, and no governor will be under pressure. And in any case, there is no such expectation from the government also.
Well, moving on, city gas distribution companies have asked the government for a tax cut. Sources have said that the industry wants parity with LPG and electric vehicles. They have added that higher tax rates are making the industry uncompetitive. Sapna Das is joining us now with more details. Sapna, give us a sense, what is the industry seeking?
Well, there's a big ask list by the city gas players, and they have sought government's intervention, especially on the taxation front, and there are multiple aspects to be considered over there. First, the city gas players want a complete waiver or a standardization at least of the high VAT rates that prevail across the country. Look at UP, for example. It has a 10% VAT on purchase of CNG, another 12.5% on sales, CNG sales. So basically the cumulative effect is over 22 odd percent. Similarly PNG, 5 to 10 odd percent VAT rates in some of the states are still there. And, many a time there is no ITC. And on top of that, the city gas players are also paying 14% central excise. If you compare this with the tax structure of, say, LPG and the EV segment against which they are competing, and that's why these demands have come through, you have LPG already under GST at 5%, EVs are already under GST at 5%, and in comparison, this is the kind of taxes that the city gas players are having to bear. So all this is now impacting their bottom lines. It's also impacting the cost to consumers, making them difficult to compete. And hence, this is a big ask from the government, at least till the natural gas is brought under GST, which will be a solution to many of these issues. These are some of the interim relief measures that have been sought by the city gas companies. Apart from this, they are also talking about, the 28% GST on CNG-fitted vehicles. That's at par with petrol diesel cars, which are at 28% plus GST, while the EV segment is treated at 5%. So this is again something that maybe at some point in time the GST Council will have to consider. All in all, these are important asks by the city gas players. They're facing a lot of competition from alternate fuels as well as the EV segment. And down the line, we'll have to wait and watch and see what kind of relief comes through. Maybe the coming union budget could be an indicator as far as the reduction, or at least in the central excise duty, is concerned.
Right, Sapna, thanks a lot for that. Now, Adani-run Virinjam port has begun its operations. This is the largest transshipment port in Kerala and the first cargo ship docked at the port, watched by thousands of people who had gathered. Karan Adani spoke to CNBC-TV18. He said that the group is interested in acquiring the state-run container corp if the valuation is right.
Concor is definitely a very strategic asset with the kind of positions and the ICD locations that they have. And I think it definitely adds a lot of value to our overall portfolio. So at the right value, we would be definitely looking at it, and we would be considering it.
From shipping to aviation, a SpiceJet woman employee was arrested yesterday for slapping a CISF male officer at the Jaipur airport. A CCTV video shows the woman stepping ahead and slapping the officer while he was interacting with her. The police has registered a case of assault against the employee based on the complaint by the CISF personnel. The police said that as per the complainant, the SpiceJet employee was stopped for not having valid permission to use the vehicle gate. Leading to an argument, the airline meanwhile has alleged a serious case of sexual harassment. A statement from SpiceJet said that their employee was subjected to inappropriate language from the CISF officer. The airline said that it has approached the local police. Harshal Patel has stepped down as the Chief Financial Officer of Quant Mutual Fund, which is currently facing a SEBI probe over front-running allegations. Shashi Kataria is the new CFO. Kataria has previously worked with Parag Parikh Mutual Fund and DSP BlackRock Investment. Quant MF dismissed reports linking Patel's resignation to SEBI's probe and clarified that Patel had tendered his resignation due to personal reasons on 19th of February, and his last day of service was the 19th of May The company said that Qataria joined them on June 10th. Two-wheeler sales in India accelerated in June, growing 21% year-on-year. According to SIAM data, this comes on the back of recovery in the sales of entry-level two-wheelers. However, sales of passenger vehicles grew only 3% compared to last year. Speaking to CNBC-TV18's SIAM President, Vinod Agarwal said that the government must boost the rural economy as sales of entry-level cars and two-wheelers are still muted.
Entry-level passenger cars or entry-level two-wheelers, they are still down as compared to the earlier peak. So therefore, I think we have to boost the rural economy from where mostly the entry-level demand comes. So we are expecting that there will be some steps in this budget which will boost the rural economy, which will put more income levels in the hands of rural people.
Well, top business leaders and newsmakers gathered at the CNBC-TV18 CII Budget Town Hall on Thursday to put forth their expectations from the upcoming budget. One common theme that emerged was the concern over water shortage. The CEOs urged the government to look at the matter with urgency. Boston Consulting Group's Janmejia Singh said that if India collapses, it won't be due to jobs, but due to water. Meanwhile, Salil Singhal, Chairman Emeritus at PI Industries, said that India needs to augment its water resources and desalination of water should be a focus area.
There is one more thing, and I hope and pray at some point we take on at a mission level, which is water. If India collapses, it will not be because of jobs, it will be because of water. And the urgency of water is getting more and more strident. And we need an infrastructure kind of thinking on water, which we are struggling to do, of course, because it's state and center. But if we don't take it on, I really worry about the country itself.
Now there is very good modular technology on desalination. Make governments like I know Gujarat, which is maximum use of water because of its chemical industry.
Right.
Create facilities of desalinated water with renewable energy. So the costs are low. Do it in a modular form. A lot of water can be created. If we focus on that, create a scheme, maybe offer an incentive or work on a certain basis to get our water resources augmented.
Well, here's the big national story. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has received interim bail from the Supreme Court in the liquor policy case filed by the Enforcement Directorate. But he will remain in jail due to a CBI case. A larger bench of the Apex Court will now decide on the necessity of the arrest under the anti-money laundering law. The Supreme Court had some harsh words for the Enforcement Directorate. The court said that the ED cannot only consider the material that implicates the accused and ignore other material that exonerates him. The court also added that an ED officer cannot be allowed to selectively pick and choose material implicating the person arrested. The court also observed that the power to arrest must be exercised cautiously by the Enforcement Directorate and must be restricted to necessary instances. And while staying with the courtroom action, the West Bengal government has moved the Supreme Court. The state government has alleged that the governor is not clearing bills that have been ratified by the Assembly. The government has claimed that 8 bills are currently pending before the governor and added that the bills were passed 2 years ago. This move makes West Bengal the 5th state to move the Apex Court against the governor after Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Kerala and Punjab. Well, time now for a short break, but coming up next, US President Joe Biden remains defiant about staying in the presidential race despite verbal gaffes. That and more when we return. Welcome back. You're watching Business 360. In international news, at least 8 people have been killed in Rafah after an Israeli strike. Gaza's civil defense has said that dozens of bodies are scattered in the alleys as inside destroyed houses of the industrial area of Gaza City. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has insisted that he backs the Gaza ceasefire framework but has accused Hamas of making demands that contradict it. However, he also reiterated that the fighting will not stop until Hamas is defeated. At least 38,000 people have been killed since the war in Gaza began on October 7th. And more than 60 people are missing after a landslide in Nepal sweeps 2 buses into a river. At least 7 Indians are among those missing. US President Joe Biden remains defiant about staying in the presidential race despite calls for him to step down, gathering momentum within the Democratic Party. Speaking at the end of the NATO summit yesterday, 81-year-old Biden committed some verbal gaffes, referring to Zelensky as Putin before correcting himself. He also referred to Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. Steve Sedgwick gets us more on Biden's gaffes and how it raises doubts about whether he's fit enough to lead the Democrats into presidential elections.
He insists he is the most qualified person to run for the presidency against Donald Trump, saying he won't step aside unless polls show there's resolutely no way he can win. Which may be too late, mightn't it? Speaking at a highly anticipated press conference that drew the curtain on the NATO summit, Mr. Biden aimed to address concerns over his age and health as more Democrats call on him to step aside. Well, he defended his track record and said he's determined to see through the rest of his economic plan.
I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. That under my plan so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing.
But the president did make a noteworthy gaffe during the press conference, mixing up his Vice President Kamala Harris with Donald Trump, just hours after he referred to Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky as Vladimir Putin.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President, but I think she's not qualified to be President. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President,
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
Now, Telangana's Industries Minister is upbeat about attracting investment inflows. Speaking to my colleague Jude Sanith, Sridhar Babu promises continuity in the state's policies towards businesses.
Our government motive is to foster the growth. The growth, if it was 2x, we would like to foster our growth to 10x in the next 4.5 years. And we were quite very clear to the industry circle and to our IT industry leaders too, all over the globe, that we would like to continue with the policies of earlier governments and also see a new spirit shall be created, a new dynamism will be created, and we shall strive from here to take our IT into the next level. That is the prime focus and prime objective of revisiting.
No, I absolutely get that. So in that breath, let me just ask you, you've also said, you have plans to actually capitalize on the global AI market of $2.2 trillion. I'm sure most of our viewers would like to know, how much of that market do you hope to capitalize on? And what is the strategy to getting there?
Keeping in view of the Indian economy and the vision of our nation altogether to make our nation economy to grow 10 trillion. Keeping that in view, we just thought of putting our economy into a driver's role and see that it grows to 2.2 or 2.23 trillion. Basing on the added advantages what we have right now, we'll be adding to the vision of 10 trillion economy what India wants to grow. So starting from here, we have our own vision and plans and strategies, how we can scale it up from 30 billion to 2.2 trillion or 2.3 trillion. That is the reason why we are concentrating on the emerging technologies and core engineering sector, and also in the pharma, life sciences, and also agriculture and the allied sector too. So putting everything together, and IT being the main focus, we will try to scale it up to $2.3 trillion in the times to come. That is our vision.
All right. Now, you've met with many of these names, some of them rather big names, Ivy League names, one might say, especially as far as the US is concerned. Was talk of investments on the table? And if yes, which of these companies will be investing in Telangana, in which sectors, and what will the nature of the investments be?
No, obviously this IT sector is a major sector where we try to attract the global players. And many already have the existence over here in terms of their GCCs, in terms of their production centers, in terms of the, data centers. So we would also try to concentrate on education sector, where I've been talking to the Ivy League institutions too, to partner with us state.
Well, before we wrap, we leave you with the visuals of celebrities and global leaders who are in Mumbai to attend Anant Ambani and Radhika Merchant's wedding, which will take place later today, this evening.